If you enjoyed this journey with Bible Unicorn, give it a thumbs up, leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more biblical mysteries and truths revealed.
Let's dive into the fascinating world of Jewish identity, particularly focusing on the hidden secrets within the DNA of today's Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and Mizrahi Jews. You've likely heard the iconic names from the Bible: Abraham, Moses, David, and even Jesus. But here's the twist. Not all Jewish communities share the same connection to that ancient bloodline. The truth is far more complex and spiritually rich than many realize. When we talk about truth, we must remember that it's coded in our DNA. While history books can be rewritten and narratives reshaped by those in power, DNA remains an unyielding testament to our ancestry. All three groups, Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and Mizrahi, are Jewish, and they each carry threads that trace back to ancient Israel. Take Ashkenazi Jews, for instance. They represent the majority of Jews in the United States, particularly in vibrant cities like New York and Los Angeles. This demographic reality doesn't diminish their Jewish identity. Rather, it highlights a rich tapestry of history. Interestingly, Mizrahi Jews boast an astonishing 85.2% genetic link to the Israelites of the Bronze Age, the very ancestors that history often overlooks. In a world where Israel's right to exist is frequently questioned, and where Jewish identity is politicized from Capitol Hill to college campuses, what if the Jewish people are sitting on one of the most compelling and controversial DNA stories in history? Let's explore the Ashkenazi Jews, not just as a genetic group, but as a living paradox. Their influence is profound, spanning law, media, technology, medicine, and thought. These are not minor contributions. They are seismic shifts in society. Yet amidst this influence, they have preserved their traditions, keeping the Torah, observing Shabbat, teaching their children Hebrew prayers, creating Yiddish, and forming tight-knit communities that have held on to the dream of Zion, even when it felt distant. This brings us to the controversial Khazar theory, which suggests that Ashkenazi Jews are merely Turkic converts to Judaism. This theory is not only misleading, but also damaging, as it undermines the rich heritage and identity of Ashkenazi Jews. While it's true that Ashkenazi Jews may rank third in terms of pure Israelite DNA, it raises questions about why Mizrahi and Sephardic voices are often marginalized. Even in Israel, where their DNA may be closer to that of Abraham, these voices are sometimes sidelined, forcing us to separate ethnic heritage from spiritual destiny. In a time when anti-Semitism is on the rise across American universities and European streets, and when Jewish identity is debated not just in Congress, but also on social media, it's essential to recognize that when most Americans hear the word Jew, they often picture an Ashkenazi individual, perhaps with a familiar New York accent, bagels and lox on the table, or Woody Allen films playing in the background. Their blood tells a story of exile and endurance, of golden ages and brutal expulsions, and of a silent resurgence that is now emerging. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Ashkenazi Jews also carry about 27% Southern European DNA, a testament to centuries of life in Iberia. Their homes were lost, synagogues burned, and children forcibly baptized, a cultural erasure wrapped in royal decree. Yet this history is rarely discussed. It reveals that these Jews did not live in isolation. They interacted, intermarried, and influenced local populations, serving as a bridge between civilizations long before interfaith dialogue became a popular concept. Today, Sephardic Jews are experiencing a revival, particularly in cities like Miami, Houston, and Los Angeles. Growing communities trace their roots back to Morocco, Turkey, or Spain. Some discover that their great-grandmothers lit Shabbat candles in secret, while others find their family names in 15th century expulsion record. In a culture obsessed with rediscovery and reclaiming lost heritage, it's time we start listening to the voices of the Sephardim, not just for historical accuracy, but for spiritual revival. You may not see them on CNN or in Netflix documentaries, but when it comes to being genetically closest to the ancient Israelites, Mizrahi Jews, especially those from Iraq and Syria, are not just contenders, they are champions. This is not symbolic or metaphorical, it's scientific. And here's the real twist. These Jews never left the region. They remained in the very lands where Abraham journeyed, where Daniel prayed, and where Ezekiel prophesied. In a time when Americans are spending $99 on DNA kits, eager to discover if they have a trace of Viking or Nigerian ancestry, imagine the significance of uncovering that you carry the actual DNA of Moses, the people of the priestly tribes, and the prophets. Yet in modern Jewish discourse, whether in the U.S., in politics, or even within Israel, Mizrahi Jews have often been sidelined, treated as cultural footnotes, rather than integral parts of the Jewish narrative. As we explore these hidden stories and connections, let's celebrate the rich diversity within the Jewish community and recognize the importance of every voice in this ongoing journey of identity and heritage. Let's delve into the profound and often overlooked narratives that shape Jewish identity, particularly in the context of the post-Holocaust experience centered around Europe. Imagine if every anthropologist in America were camped outside, with CNN trucks and New York Times reporters eager to uncover these stories. Today, in places like Brooklyn, Queens, Los Angeles, and Jerusalem, communities are quietly and faithfully rebuilding their identities. This raises a haunting question. If they hold the oldest threads of our history, why aren't we listening to their stories? Let's explore a topic that rarely gets discussed, not in religious circles, not in the news, and not even in most academic panels on Jewish identity. There exists a quiet, consistent fire within these communities, a faith that runs deep in their bones. Meanwhile, in Ashkenazi Jewish history, centuries of living in Europe and facing intense persecution led to intermarriage with non-Jewish European women. Sometimes this was consensual, sometimes it was forced. Yet despite this, the maternal line has remained remarkably preserved. Here's what gives me chills. This fact changes everything we think we know about who is Jewish enough. We build monuments to soldiers and kings, but where are the memorials to the mothers who kept Shabbat under Islamic rule in Baghdad, or whispered the Shema to their children under the threat of death in Catholic Spain? Why isn't this part of mainstream discourse? These women didn't just carry children, they carried a covenant. They were the unsung heroes of our history, and we must start asking what secrets are still buried in the stories of these mothers. Let's not sugarcoat it. This is the part that makes many uncomfortable. The simmering question beneath the surface of Jewish identity, synagogue politics, Israeli society, and even family dinner tables in places like Brooklyn, Jerusalem, or Miami beaches. Who is more Jewish? You better believe people are thinking about it. So what do we do with that tension? Mizrahi Jews, for instance, were exiled into Islamic lands, where they held on to ancient traditions in Arabic and often lived in close proximity to their biblical roots. They helped shape Jewish law through giants like Maimonides. In that sense, perhaps being Jewish isn't solely about how close your DNA is to Abraham, but rather how close your heart is to the covenant that Abraham made. Consider how we define real Americans. Is it the rural farmer in Kansas, the Harvard graduate in Boston, or the first-generation immigrant in Los Angeles? We are living in an age of lost roots and loud opinions. DNA kits are booming, but the meaning behind them seems to be shrinking. This isn't just a Jewish conversation, it's an American conversation. But here's the inconvenient truth. DNA might tell you where you're from, but only faith tells you who you are. In today's climate, Free Palestine chants are often met with accusations of anti-Semitism. Jewish students feel afraid to wear their Stars of David, while others demand to decolonize Jewish identity, as if 3,000 years of history can be erased with a viral tweet. This fact doesn't answer every geopolitical question, but it grounds the conversation in something that has been missing for decades: truth rooted in evidence. We see people screaming about authenticity online, yet many don't even know their own grandparents' stories. In a world where everyone wants to claim an identity without carrying the weight of its history, we must ask ourselves, do we truly want the God behind the DNA? The God whose genes match the scriptures and whose very existence screams survival with a purpose? This matters whether you are Ashkenazi, Sephardic, Mizrahi, or not Jewish at all. So don't let ancestry reports or man-made categories define your worth. It's time to reclaim our narratives, to listen to the stories that have been silenced, and to recognize the rich tapestry of Jewish identity that weaves through our shared history. Now it's your turn to engage with these stories and to reflect on what they mean for you and for our collective future.